The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. This could be the aspiring advertising professional looking to break into their first job. This could be for the current advertising professional looking to break through and find that next promotion. And of course, this could be for the brand side marketers who are looking to break in and find their next agency. And we do this every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. And we have a very special episode for you all today. We are recording at the WPP office, their headquarters, with none other than Rob Reilly. Rob Reilly has been a dream guest of this show for the past 5 years, and we finally got to sit down with him. For those who don't know, Rob Reilly is probably the biggest leader by volume in the ad industry. He oversees creativity as the global chief creative officer at WPP, largest holding company. So that's a lot of lives and a lot of creative ideas that he oversees. And we sit down and ask him about how he originally broke into advertising, his first job, which was one of persistence. And then we talk about how he had to re-break into advertising, taking a job demotion, but slingshotted his career. So a lot of lessons here. And Jack comes in and asks for a job, which is really funny, to work on Starbucks. It's good stuff. We hope you enjoy. And we hope, if you like it, that you can leave a nice written review on Apple Podcasts, along with a 5-star rating. Essentially, this helps us continue to get guests like Rob Reilly and to continue to give you content every single week. So now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Boom.
I don't know. I think I was so obsessed with ads and creativity, even though I didn't really understand. That word wasn't a word you used back then. It was just the ads part that I was like, oh, I want to be the people who make it. There weren't any shows that taught you. There was no Mad Men. You could sort of see what was happening.
That's what I watched.
You know, yeah.
And I was like, I want to do this. I have no family in the industry. Yeah. I watched it in high school, and I was like, that's it for me. It was a Mad Men. And
then you end up willing yourself to do it. I was self-taught. You know, I worked at a small agency that happened to rent office space from agencies that weren't doing as well. So I got to be around Grace and Rothschild and got around all these amazing people. And through osmosis and, trial and error, I taught myself how to put a portfolio together. It took a long time to get a job. My mother was the first one who sort of connected me. She said, I've got a friend in a bowling league that knows somebody at this agency. Call her. I called her. She put me on the phone with the person who somewhat has the equivalent of my job. His name is Bruce Nelson.
Yeah.
He was the global CCO of McCann at the time, and I worked for a year and finally got a job with him.
Incredible.
Thanks to my mom. She was my first headhunter.
And is she a bowler? Is that what I
She
heard?
was a bowler. She's passed away. She was in sort of like a housewife bowling league.
Now we're talking.
In North Jersey. Are you a bowler? With a mustache, you could be a bowler. I mean, it seems like it's a 1980 bowler look, potentially. Cop. I mean, what have you gotten with that? What have you got with that? What do people say? Besides handsome stud, but you probably, some other people would say cop.
No cops.
Narc, maybe narc. No. Narc's cool. Narc's cool. I mean, it's a good profession. I never could grow a mustache. I don't want to derail you.
Stuff going on there.
It's a little bit of scruff because if I don't, I'm bald. It looks like I'm dying. If I shave my head and face, it looks like I'm dying. So
you got a nice hat on today.
Yeah, I do have a nice hat. Thank you for allowing the hat. We cleared the hat before the.
I didn't know hats were allowed. I would have brought
mine.
They are
now. Yeah, I like this background. The background's looking cool. Looking
good
good.
Logo.
Yeah.
So, tell me about the process when you're building out your portfolio on the side at night. Like, what were you going through? Doing your day job, maybe not doing your day job as much, working on your portfolio. How do you tackle that?
It was interesting. I was sort of working at the small agency, being like a guy gal Friday, which is jack of all trades. I would set the conference up for meetings. I would type letters. I would go deliver stuff. I would go fix my boss's shoe when it was broken. I mean, I would do anything that was asked. But I also was free to work on my portfolio at the time, and I happened to be around such generous people that helped me work on my portfolio. So I would show people my book. Hey, I'm this. I want to be a copywriter.
How many campaigns do you think today is necessary?
I don't even know what. Honestly, it's so different getting a job now, I think, for young people, and I really applaud how many different levels and different types of creativity you have to understand, whether it's social and digital, and it's tough.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there's so many more places to work. So many different kinds of companies. You can work at
14,000 ad agencies
and work
in the
at
US.
tech companies and work at in-house agencies for brands. I mean, Verizon has an amazing in-house agency. Spotify has an amazing in-house agency.
Yeah.
Facebook is a great place to work. Google has amazing creative people. Like, that wasn't even a thought.
Yeah.
You can work at magazines. You can work at this. Now, so while it's maybe more difficult to get a job because you have to be a master of so many things, I do think your opportunities are greater, and it's never been a better time to get into the business.
Totally. And I still recommend, if possible, to try to break into a larger agency, creative agency, and then you can go from there.
Well, I think get your first job.
Yeah.
I know some people will give you the advice of wait for that perfect job. Whether you want to work at Ogilvy or VML or Gray or AKQA, one of our creative agencies, or you want to work at Wyden or you want to work at Droga, get in the business. Who wants to take a chance on you? Because it's much easier to get your next job potentially once you're in the business and learning, because you're always learning. No matter where you're working, you're learning your craft. It's like being an actor. If you're trying to get big roles in movies, or you're probably getting big shows on TV or Broadway, do off-Broadway until you get it. Do commercial till you get it. So it's similar in that sense of be a working actor, be a working creative.
Yeah. So paint us a picture then. So you got your first agency job, creative role. What were you doing there? How did that look once you finally broke through and broke in?
Oh, I was so excited to be writing the little stickers that went in convenience stores. On the doors said, for Coca-Cola. I worked on Coca-Cola. My first job was writing radio and maybe some billboards. I worked for this guy John Rea, who's awesome. Who's at ECD at the time, or group creative director at the time, and there was just some nice people who helped me learn the craft of writing radio, and then outdoor, but really I was spending a lot of time writing thirsty or refreshing, but really working hard to see if I can squeeze something even more creative through it. But I certainly learned a lot in my first couple of years doing maybe what would be equivalent of people writing social posts now, or you're starting a little bit,
getting your reps in,
getting those things, getting your sea legs, if you will.
Yeah. So then how long did you work at that agency, or where, paint us a picture leading up to Crispin and how...
Yeah, so it's before Crispin, before BC,
BC,
before Christ, before Crispin. I like that. That's a good way to think about it. I was at McCann for a few years, then I went to an agency called Allen Gargano. Worked with my friend DJ Pierce, and that went out of business. Which was weird to see, one of the greatest agencies of all time, go out of business. And I was very entrepreneurial, getting a job. I sent all these faxes out to creative directors around the world, Jeff Goodby and this guy Mike Tesh, who is a famous creative now living in Miami at an agency down there and in Florida. And I would send it at night as they were coming in to pack the office to sell all the copiers and all that stuff. We would all be working on our portfolios to get out of there because the company was going out of business.
Makes sense.
And I would send faxes to all these, CCOs around. That's back then. You were sending faxes, sort of mini ads of me trying to get a job.
Yeah.
And one of the ads was, taking a job at Ali Gargano was the right move. I just happened to do it in the wrong decade because they were the best agency in the 80s and going out of business in the 90s. Got in the one show, actually. And it said Rob Reilly Now Looking. And I must have sent 20 of these. Must have sent 20 of these every night. It's you'd send them to 20 creative directors and then pray the next day someone would call you. And I got a few calls, and one of them was a guy named Mike Tesh, who was at this agency, HDC, Harris Recall in Florida, and but had done all the fast-talking FedEx work. And he had worked at Allen Gargano, so I had a connection to him, but I didn't know him
like
back
an
then.
alumni,
But he's famous person who's since passed away, but famous, creative, amazing creative. And the other person was Rich Silverstein.
Yeah.
And Rich Goodby Silverstein was the hottest agency by far.
Yeah.
And so Rich's, assistant or the creative manager called me and said, "Listen, Rich has gotten your faxes. He thinks they're really funny.
Good.
You should send. He would love to see your book." Well, I never sent him my book. Do you know why I never sent him my book?
No. Why would you
Because
not send
the
it?
faxes were by far the best thing in my book, by like leaps and bounds. I was like, "There's no way I'm going to get a job at this great agency," and it's so funny because I've told Margaret Johnson, who's a good friend, CCO of Goodby Silverstein. I told her the story, and she told Rich, and Rich is like thinks it's the funniest thing. He doesn't really remember. So I went up to Rich a couple of years ago at the ad council dinner. I said, maybe he might know who I am by this point.
Yeah.
And I never had met him. And I said, "Rich," I go, "I'm Rob Reilly. Margaret told us the story about the faxes," and he looked at me like I had 12 heads. And I was just like, "Okay, nice to meet you. Goodbye." And I said, "Margaret, the guy didn't even recall the story that you told him a day ago." Anyway, these people are heroes when you meet them.
Right.
Still, I met Jeff Goodby a couple years ago. Joe Shirota, who is a big part of Ogilvy's success, he knows Goodby, and had lunch with him in Cannes, which was like, dream come true to meet these heroes of yours.
Totally.
So that was cool. So yeah, I finally got a job in Florida, not at Crispin, but at a competing agency that was equally as hot at the time, and did some work there. My mom got sick, so I moved back to New York, worked at Hill Holiday. Again, pretty good agency, but not quite making the work I wanted to make.
Right.
Went to stint some other places, back to Hill Holiday, and then finally I said, I was on the path to be one of those people that was going to be good in a room. As I said, I was good at being with people, good at selling things, but I didn't have the work. So I had this big title at Hill Holiday, had made a lot of money, but I didn't have the work. So you have two choices. Go on that path where you don't have the work, but you have everything else, and you maybe can keep going, and you may keep ascending and having a good career, or you figure out how to go back and get the work and make the work. And I chose the latter because I wanted to be a great creative, and I had all the other skills, but I didn't have the work. Maybe because of opportunity, maybe because I just wasn't good enough. So I took a pay cut and a title cut down to CPB, Crispin, and became a copywriter and started over, and that was it.
Yeah, it's like you kind of like rebroke in there.
Yeah, I had to re-break myself in at the age of 34 years old. So I don't have a. I was in the situation to do it, and I don't recommend this for everybody. I didn't have a wife or children, and I had a father to help me put me through college. I had a lot of the advantages that other people don't have, and I was able to take a step back and not worry about the money and not worry about the titles, and it ended up being the best thing. But the following the work and having the body of work is by far the most important thing.
How do you judge that for like a young creative or somebody just entering into the business? Like, yeah. Yeah.
You're tapping the mic stand quite a lot. Oh. Okay. That's my beat. I keep myself in rhythm.
He's good.
Shit, all right. So yeah, we're putting music to this in the background now.
Leave it in. Sorry.
Cut.
No worries.
Are we cutting? No, all right. Now Jonathan might help me. I'm a fidgeter. I can kill you.
What was I going to ask?
I don't know.
How do you judge like where good creative work, if we're rolling, how do you judge where good creative work is going to be made? For the entry level, mid level people, they might feel like they're at a good name agency, wherever that might be. What are the indicators?
Well, I think you can make great work anywhere. I mean, look at the agencies that are. I mean, Ogilvy maybe 4 or 5 years ago wasn't making the kind of work that Ogilvy historically had done. We changed some of the leadership, brought some new people in. And it's the best agency in the world, in 3 years. So yeah. I don't think it is always just go to the places you think will give you the great work. Like find the people that you respect.
Yeah.
Find maybe some brands you like that you like some of that work that agency is doing. But there's opportunities to make great things for every client. Doesn't always happen. You sort of need sort of a process, and you need people that are passionate and all those things to line up. But I don't think it's like it used to be that only the Widens and the Crispins and the Drogas did the great work, or the BBHs did the great work. Now it's everybody doing great work and everybody doing not so great work. I mean, I think there's a fair share of work that's not as good, that could be better, that we have to do better as an industry. I very much root for all agencies to do well because it helps us.
Everybody.
It helps all ships rise with the tide.
Yeah. And what advice would you have for somebody in like leadership position if they're working with clients directly? How do you pull out the best work from clients and like kind of massage that? Maybe how Ogilvy did that. You said a couple years ago they had a immense shift.
Yeah, well, I think you need great CEO leadership. I think Devika Bulchandani is one of the best CEOs I've ever seen. And she came from McCann. We worked together at McCann, but you have John Cook, you have Laura Manis, and you have lots of CEO leaders. Like CEOs are the real reason why agencies are great. Really great. Okay. You can have great creatives, but if you don't have a CEO who believes in it, then no one really feels like they're going to be on the hook for creativity. So when a CEO stands there, when Mark Reed stands up in the middle of the leadership meeting and says creativity is our number one priority, it's how we're going to grow. He has the ambition to be the most creative company in the world. Like, that's the air cover that I need. So every time I'm in a hard conversation with internally, I'm like, our boss said this, not Rob Reilly. Like, this is important. Now, he understands, like I understand, at least creativity is going to lead to growth. It's going to lead to success, especially as AI is becoming more and more thing. There's going to be more average work put into the workplace. You need to have breakthrough ideas. So hopefully you're using AI as a tool to get to some of those things, but you need really brilliant creative people and strategic people and account people and production people, but you also need great clients. If a client doesn't want to do breakthrough work, it's not going to happen. Luckily, we have amazing clients who want it too. Right. Doesn't always mean it leads to success, but when you're all pushing for the same thing, it's much easier. When you're all, if you're fighting, if you don't believe, then you got to have that hard conversations like what are we trying to do together?
Right, because when the CEO makes a statement, you're saying, if I'm hearing this correctly, a CEO makes a statement that we are creatively driven. This is important. Then that matters internally to all your employees, of course. But then it also sends a signal to clients, your business partners, that this is what we stand for. This is something that you need to come to expect if you want to work with us.
And I think people expect it now at WPP. I think clients who come to WPP expect that they are going to be met with fierce, creativity. That people want to do the things that will help that brand be successful. And creativity. And by the way, creativity is technology, creativity is data, creativity is production, it's media. It's not just the ads we make in the Super Bowl. It's so many different things. It's commerce. It's so many different things. That's what's exciting about WPP. It's not a fight anywhere within the company. Doesn't mean it always happens, but everybody believes in it, from making work for the Super Bowl to doing things for Diwali in India to the kind of work we're doing in London for NHS, for NGOs, for big brands, for small regional brands. Like it matters to everybody, and everybody understands that that's where the success is going to come from.
And how do you do this as your job and make sure everybody is aligned? And if the CEO is saying creativity matters, that's on you, right?
Yeah. Well, I try to make it not on me. I mean, I think the CCOs, whether you're an agency CCO or an office CCO or a big creative company like WPP, holding company, we don't like to use that phrase, but CCO, you get too much of the credit when you're creatively recognized and too much of the blame when you don't win or you're not creatively recognized. Okay. So I try to include everybody in the win and try to include everybody in the loss and say we all win and lose together, and it's it comes with the job, when you're a creative person, when you do well, it's good, and when you don't, but I try to make it everybody's business, and that's why I think every brand should be responsible for making the kind of work that's magical in the world, that drives business, that breaks through, that breaks norms in the industry, all those things. And it should be the account person, the strategy person, production person, the project manager, every client, CEO of our company, the CEO of the brand you're working with. Everybody should be invested in it. But winning fixes everything. When you win, that's why Dove has been so good for so long. They've believed in creativity, and they have the sales and they have everything to back it up. So it's like Nike. You never want to get off that success wheel. It's like you're on it. So I always try to get everybody addicted to it. I try to get everybody addicted to creativity, and the way you do that is to show breakthrough work that leads to wildly successful results. That's how you get the addiction.
I like that. So for you then, what was your first big campaign that was wildly successful that you worked on?
Probably Mini Counterfeit for BMW when we helped launch the Mini car, and it was a Crispin idea. It's very personal to me because it's one of the first things that I was part of that was truly globally known. And yes, it won a lot of awards, but like it was for a real brand and had real media behind it, and it was very innovative at the time. And my wife was the account person at Crispin who sold it. Yeah. And I was just a copywriter. I worked with Franklin Tipton and Paul Schulte and Tiffany Rolfe, who's still one of my best friends today. And Andrew Keller was the CD, and Bill Wright was the CD, and Dave Rolfe and Rupert Samuel were the producers, all people that are still close to me now. But it was really the first time that I had felt like I had been part of something that was moving culture. Yeah, and it was for a big brand. And that's probably the moment I was like, okay, maybe I belong in this group.
And how did you get to that idea? Like,
just working with some weirdos, working with a weirdo named Franklin Tipton, sitting in a room with him, the guy is a genius, him and I were both writers and partners.
Were you both writers?
Yeah, sometimes Alex just put people together or didn't give you a partner at all and made you swim with the sharks by yourself. But it was just one of those things, and Franklin, he's just a brilliant. He comes at the world in so many interesting ways, and him and I were just sitting in a room together, and then we brought Tiffany and Paul, and they were another team, and they helped work on it and craft it, and Andrew, of course, and obviously Alex was a big part of it, but it was a magical moment. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Love that.
Yeah.
Do you miss, do you get into the work?
Yeah,
today? Do you have those moments?
Sometimes, like if it's a big giant thing, I worked a lot on Beyonce's Super Bowl this year and some of the Hellman's work that we've done, and obviously some of the pitches that I get involved with. But we've got amazing people, so I'm really careful to be a real value and partner to the CCOs that are running some of these projects, or people, I manage things through influence, inspiration, and hopefully inspiration, but visible leadership versus authority. Can't have people all be bottlenecked with one person. So you have great. It's a lot of people inside WPP. But you just got to hire great people. I say it a lot on Facebook. Hire great people, or Meta. Hire great people and get out of the way. Well, it's also like support them when they need it too. Like when they ask for your help. Be there. I want to be the first call when things are going bad versus the last call. I can't help you when it's the last call, but I can help you when it's the first call.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing you talk about a time when you recently took over creative at Crispin, and you had to call up Alex. There was a situation.
Well, there are many calls with Alex you would call a situation.
I think it was right when he was stepping down or leaving.
Yeah.
And you asked for his advice, and he was able to help you out with that.
Oh, yeah. I think it was during Microsoft. We had just won Microsoft, and Alex wasn't particularly involved in that pitch. It was probably the biggest thing I ever had been a part of. Yeah. And we won the business, behind some really smart leaders, Tim Roper and Bill Wright, and I worked deeply on it, and we had won it, and then we were trying to launch some work, and it didn't work out, and then some stuff fell through, and then it was one of those moments where I was like, we're going to lose this business and I'm going to be fired. And I rarely called Alex, and I just called him. I said, listen, I need your help. Can you help me? Yeah. Can you just jam with me for a second, So it was a Sunday, and he came in, he was playing his guitar, and we came up with the campaign, I'm a PC, which was against the Apple, everybody, taking the stereotype that Apple had turned PC users into, and that's the moment we came up with it, and that's what launched Microsoft and that brand, and to turn around, years later, Marketer of the Year. Boom. From that moment.
There we go.
So
what's next, Rob, with WPP? What's the vision in your role personally for the whole organization? 100,000 plus people. What are you thinking?
Listen, winning. You
just won something pretty recently.
Yeah, which one? The Amazon, the Henkel. We've won a couple things recently. Starbucks.
Bump it.
So we're thank you. We're you know, a lot of people working really hard, and Group M is really on a good roll here, and we've won some great creative accounts and some great integrated accounts. So it's winning fixes a lot of stuff, and so that keeping the pedal to the metal, as if we can use a terrible phrase from the 70s.
I like that. I like
pedal
that.
the metal. I mean, it goes with the stash. Goes with the stash. Pedal the metal. I feel like that's a T-shirt you might wear. Sorry, it's true. So when you ask what's next, I don't know what's next in the future, you know, but I do think we have a tremendous leadership group. You know, Mark is really, I think, a fantastic leader in assembling CEOs that really work together, and I call it executive camaraderie. It's not always collaboration, but there's a camaraderie, and I joke about this. I don't joke about it. Mark thinks I'm joking about it when I say Mark has this WhatsApp group where all the CEOs are on together, and I couldn't believe it when I started. He said, "Oh, Rob makes fun of me." I go, "No, I think it's so brilliant." I didn't work at places in the past that had this level of one, you know, support too. There's this WhatsApp group is daily. There's a great story I read about John Cook, and we just won this piece of business, or hey, does anybody know this person? Like, it's such a fluid system by which I think if you have the great leaders on both the creative side and I think the business side and obviously strategy side, like, you can't lose, and everything else will sort of fall into place. You know, we've added some new people to Group M, and they've already started to win more and more, and this is how I think it's just going to keep flowing. Brian is a fantastic leader. So we're just adding more and more talent, and I do think it's because we have a great creative reputation. You know, whether we're number one or number two at Cannes is irrelevant. Whether we're consistently putting the work out that people are saying, wow, that's a great piece of work, or that's a great piece of work for a giant brand. How did they pull that off? Or what a great story they're telling. And I think people are attracted to creative companies, even if you're not a creative by title. You want to work at a company that values it. So I do think that's going to be my story. How do I continue to tell that narrative through the things I say, the presentations I make, and then the work we make, and how I get involved in those things, and continuing to make media and creative work together in a really symbiotic way, which I think we're starting to do more and more. Usually it's with our own companies, but sometimes it's with another company, whether we do the creative and someone else does the media, or vice versa. I do think it's up to the leaders to make sure that it works with your clients, because that's what they need. Not necessarily what we always think we need, but like what we know is a client feeling a creative and media agencies are working in sync together in support of the brand they're both, frankly, being paid for to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the?
You can ask about anything. This is unfiltered.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell us about Team Starbucks, because Jack, our co-founder here, drinks 3 Starbucks a day. He actually made a LinkedIn post, and he applied himself, and he's contractually.
You applied to work for Starbucks. Work for us.
Team Starbucks.
For Team Starbucks.
Yeah.
I was thinking I could just step in and help out, unpaid too.
You know,
I will sue.
It's a great WPP win, and it's a true collaboration between a lot of the agencies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is from the Content Cave.
Oh, this is Jack's.
this is my application.
Jack, I mean, it's.
The breaking and entering content cave. This just came across my desk. That Starbucks has selected a bespoke WPP unit to manage the U.S. creative business. They're dubbing it Team Starbucks. I would like to formally announce that I am willing to throw my name in the ring to be a part of Team Starbucks.
So-
Qualifications: 1, top 80% star earner globally for the Starbucks app. 2, that's all I got. So I'm willing to quit my job at Breaking and Entering to be a part of Team Starbucks. Please
Don't hire 'em.
consider me.
So
This
do
is
you
a-
want to interview him now?
This is an odd. Oh, we're doing an interview. Yeah. Well, you know, Jack, as you know, my is Jack your real name, or is John?
It's Jack. I'm a purebred.
Purebred. Kennedy, you kind of have a Kennedy look to you, like a Kennedy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've heard Kennedy. I've heard Paul McCartney.
Really, Paul
I've heard,
McCartney? That's
who else?
ambitious.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, wow, you're really drinking a lot before you show up to my studio. Well, Well, what kind of job do you think you would be good at for Team Starbucks?
I think I'm more, what job wouldn't I be good at is kind of my thing, because I'm thinking I could go like under the radar, like not necessarily, a part of Team Starbucks, but I'm a part of Team Starbucks, meaning
Are you
do
speaking a new language that I don't understand? Like, what do you mean part of the under the radar, but part of the radar? Like, what do you mean?
exactly.
Like,
That's kind of the allure of it, is that I could do the things that you.
do we have to pay you? Do we have to pay you?
That's what I'm saying. I'd be unpaid.
Unpaid. Oh, now you're speaking our language here at WPP. We will happily not pay you to do work for us. But I think part of breaking and entering, if we could actually keep this on point, like being specific about what you want to do. You might not know exactly, but if you're applying for a job, like, I always would see young copywriters or art directors or people would call themselves, I'm a creative director at like 21. Nope. It's like, well, great. I don't have a job for a 21. I have a junior copywriter or a junior art director. Right. If you're interested in one of those, well, which one? Well, I do everything. Okay. Well, what do you think you do best at? Right. So I do think being specific about if you were to join Team Starbucks, unless you're saying, I'll be the barista. I will be the in-house barista.
Exactly. This is like, your first job when you broke in, kind of jack of all trades.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But being able to do anything and saying,
and
hey,
being unpaid. I mean,
being unpaid is like, that's the dream.
I think Jack is hired. If it doesn't ruin, I mean, are you paying him? I mean, is anybody being? I feel like no one's being paid. See, that's
no one's being paid.
So, how does Jack make money? Is it the Kennedy? Is it the money from the family? Is it family money?
Kick it in.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's yeah. Well, that's you're still paying for that one, I believe, right? It's still in their investigation. It was a terrible. It's been well documented. That wasn't Kennedy's family's greatest moment. It wasn't. Chappaquiddick. Okay.
Good point, though. I was hoping he would be copywriter, on point, strategic.
Yeah. I think you got to be focused as a young person. You just got to be focused because there are certain jobs that exist certainly at the junior level that are specific. There isn't this come in and learn everything. You have to sort of at least have an idea of what you want to do.
If I would have led this if I would have went in there and said, my name's Gino Schellenberger, I want to be a copywriter for Team Starbucks, and here's my portfolio, here's all the things I love about WPP.
Here's why I'm the ultimate Starbucks person.
Right.
I mean, that goes a long way. Passion goes a long way.
Clear, confidence.
Yeah. And then if you have the work to back it up, and if there's a job too, Right. But even if there's not a job, sometimes like it took me a year to get that first job at McCann, and I just pestered Bruce Nelson and would go back every month to show him progress. And after a year, he finally said, okay, you're ready. And then he goes, well, I don't have a job for you yet. Just wait around. And I'm thinking like now the job, if there was a $18,000 job, like it was odd that it didn't have a job, but now I kind of understand like there are very finite amount of jobs, and I think for younger people too, it's even more competition, because I do think it's becoming an industry. Why we talk a lot about like we need to attract more people. I do think it's one of the few places where you get to use your brain in a different way every day to solve a problem, and usually that's with creativity.
Absolutely.
So what an awesome business to be in.
I agree.
Yeah,
that's why we do these conversations.
Yeah, let's keep going, Jack. We got a lot of questions in here. I like this. Professional.
How much more time do we have?
Oh yeah, no. I have no job here. This is it. This is what I do. I just do yeah. Nobody makes any money here in this podcast booth. Jonathan does. Jonathan does. Very, very well paid producer.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. It doesn't make for a good podcast, but it's fun for us.
Well, when you got the guy talking right now, it doesn't have a mic.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is we've gone off the rails completely, right? So you'll edit this down to 3 to 4 minutes. Listen, Pete, you know how to roll.
What the hell are they doing?
All right, favorite ad you've ever made?
I'm taking my hat off for a second. It's getting a little steamy in here. Favorite ad I've ever made. I would say it has to be Fearless Girl. I've said this before, and maybe not for the reasons you might think. Not because it's won a lot of awards. It's because it's probably the one thing that I'm a part of that will outlive everybody in this room. And that's an interesting thing to think about of what you leave, and even if it doesn't stand for State Street 20 years from now, and sort of the equality on Wall Street, it's going to stand. The pose itself is so inspirational to. I see it every day. My dentist is right next to this Fearless Girl. I go and I watch it. I do watch people interact with it and feel good that I've contributed at least one thing, hopefully more than one thing, that really impacts people's lives on a daily basis just by being in the world.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram story. One of my friends just out of nowhere.
So that it's very hard to be part of those things. So it's hard to say something else is. But my favorite ad of all time that I haven't made, comedy ad, is BETC. Made this ad for Canal TV with the bear, and the director directed this bear. I don't know, it was 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, but like, look it up. It's called The Bear, and it's one of the funniest things you've ever seen in your life. A director directing a bear rug.
Okay,
it's incredible.
Oh, check that out.
Yeah,
check that
it's
out.
amazing.
With Fearless Girl, any stories that come to mind, like whether it was like when you came up with that idea or your team came up with that idea?
Well, the team for sure, Lizzie and Tally. You know, that was the creative team who came up with it. Eric Silver was the North American CCO, very involved in making that, and lots of other people, you know, Tom and Sean and producers and Natty and like Chris. And there's so many people that were involved in it. And but you know, we came to them with the idea. We called it Fearless Girl. We had the pose with the little girl or hand. Like, there's been a lot of talk about, you know, and the artist did a great rendition of the vision we had for the statue.
Love it.
And it was awesome. It was done, and it was only done for 2 weeks, and then, you know, we knew if it was done well that it would get the attention and that people would demand it for it to stay. So we only bought 2 weeks of media for it. And then we knew just the pressure. And then when the city tried to take it away and put it somewhere else because it was causing a little too much traffic with the bull already causes so much traffic, you know, we went to them with the compass that the only place she goes is in Wall Street, in front of the New York Stock Exchange, facing it. So when those stockbrokers come out, they have to face her and remember to do the right thing the next day. So I've told this story many times. I'm sick of telling it, but it's just hard to not feel a lot of pride that was done by an ad agency, and that we can, as an industry, really affect things in the world. And we've done it time after time. So when people talk about purpose and there's too much purpose, it makes me crazy. There's not enough purpose. Like, governments do not have the means, or sometimes don't have the will, but certainly don't have the money to help people. And that's what their original intent was of governments, to help people. So the fact that agencies are with brand partners that believe in it too, that have the money to put behind it, are helping people on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we talk about too much purpose because it's winning too many awards. Who cares about the awards? Mm-hmm. What I care about that brands will continue to write things, and it doesn't mean you can't make money. You know, so I hope we don't lose steam for purpose. I really don't. I think the world needs it more than ever.
I was going to ask too about, that was a proactive idea, correct?
It was an assignment.
Okay.
No, it was an assignment. They had a fund. State Street had a fund called the She Makes a Different Fund, which you can invest in female-led companies. Okay. It was a real fund called the She Fund. Sure. And they had, how do we promote it? And, you know, the typical thing is bring a print ad. And we brought 20 ideas. One of them was a different version of Fearless Girl. It was a female bull at first, and then we changed it to a little girl because there's no such thing as a female bull. It's a cow. And the team went back and figured out how to come back with a girl. And again, perseverance. You know, I've talked about this before. Like, you know, the real great creative people know how to take feedback and turn it into gold, not cry, and like really take the feedback. So as a young creative, if you break in, like, say yes to everything. You know, work on everything you can. Don't be a complainer. Take feedback, question the feedback, but take it with some level of positivity that the clients you're dealing with know more than you might know, and then try to come back with solutions. And hopefully you have bosses that will help sell your solution. But we are not necessarily we're artists in a sense, and we use art, but we're in a commerce business, and we have to sell things, whether they're products, services, philosophies, brands, platforms, whatever they may be. But try to be that person who understands how to take feedback and turn it into gold.
Totally.
You'll always have a career.
Was there ever a time you went rogue on a project? Maybe a boss of yours disagreed with a creative idea and you still went with it?
No, I always believe that my bosses. I always work for great people, from McCann to Hill Holiday to Crispin to McCann. I was about, but no, I've always worked for people that I've trusted.
Yeah.
And fought for things.
Yeah.
But never went rogue. I don't believe necessarily in that. I want people who are passionate about what they believe and try it. I'm always like, let's try it, but also let's make sure we try some other things too.
Okay.
But
good leadership all around, so you don't have to go rogue.
You don't have to go rogue. I mean, that's why it's called starving artists. Like we've got to figure out how to like make great creative work that is what the client wants to, and that is going to pop in culture. And there's a million ways that can happen, and your way isn't always the only way, or the best way. I've been proven wrong many times, where I've be like, I don't think this is the right way, but I guess, and then I'd be like, oh, well, maybe I was wrong. Happens often.
Is there one that comes to mind?
I think Whopper Freakout, I was very freaked out by it. If you remember that campaign, and I remember thinking this is too aggressive, and someone was going to get hurt. And Brian Geis was the client, and we were sitting, and Henry was the director, and Henry Alex Rubin and Smuggler was a production company. And I remember being in Las Vegas, and we were shooting, and the guy starts screaming, "Go back there and get me a Whopper," to the guy, the actor playing the manager. And I'm like, pull the plug. Someone's going to die here. And Brian Geis is like, no. He says, no, let it roll. And I was like, you're going to regret this. I'm thinking this, and I was one who would have regretted it. And things always seem worse when it's live, just like things always seem funnier when it's live. We've all been on these sets where like we're laughing, and then you get in the edit room like, wow, this is boring or terrible. So I've definitely, as big a risk taker I am in the work part, I'm not as much in my life. And then on set, I was just so afraid that someone was going to get stabbed on that set. So
that's a real.
And if you watch it, it's real. When that guy is screaming at that, the guy with the long hair, he goes, "Go back there and get me a Whopper." And that guy left the set, and we had to trace him down, and so he signed a waiver. It was all done hidden camera. It was all done secretly. That's why we shot in Las Vegas, because the rules were lenient back then. You didn't have to tell people they were being filmed.
Okay.
You had to get the release after.
And
so.
Subservient Chicken, I know you were also part of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're bringing back the highlights from the if you can find it somewhere on YouTube, Subservient Chicken, a thing you'd watch today and go, what is this? Mm-hmm. This is so rudimentary in technology, but back then it was mind blowing to people. And Jeff Benjamin was our partner. Andrew and I, we were the CCOs, and Jeff was the head of digital at the time. And it was like a $50,000 shoot on the next day with like some random person in the costume, and shot all these different commands. And we didn't think it was going to be really anything. And Jeff did. And again, this is where like you need people that are so passionate about one little thing. And it was like, I'm going to make this little digital part of this idea, which ended up being the entire idea. Because the actual work, there was films that went with it. Rocky Martin shot all these films, and we had to pull them off the air because they were just a little too racy, which is not a, by the way, getting stuff pulled off the air is not a victory. It was a failure, But luckily, the digital part of it was the thing that blew up and sort of saved us.
Explain to people listening that might not have seen it, because, what was it, 2006?
Something like that. Yeah.
What was the chicken doing? And how
it was called Subservient Chicken. It was fried chicken. You could have your way. It was have it your way with Burger King things. So it was a way of commanding the chicken. So you would go on this sort of, look like you're in some weird back alley hotel, and this chicken, you would say chicken, do jumping jacks, and the chicken would do jumping jacks. And then if you asked the chicken to do something kind of racy, the chicken would wave its finger, no, don't do that. And it looked like magic, because it looked like it was like we had shot so many commands. Jeff had shot so many different commands, 500, 600 commands, that no matter what you asked for it felt like it was live. And it's 2024. Now you would look at it, it's like, this thing is so stupid. But back then, it was so magical. And that's the kind of thing I'm always after for. Like, we have to push for the magic. That's what clients come to us for. That's what we have to continue to push for. So if you're a young person, you're an old person, you're someone from our business or outside our business, if you're coming into our business, you have to push for the magic. That is the thing that gets everybody excited. Clients, agency, consumers.
Yeah.
And that all leads to, hopefully, business. And that's the part of the business that I love is amazing ideas that lead to wildly successful results. Because then I get to do it again the next day.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
The fun could come back in the business a bit. We're trying.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Jack just did an interview. Earlier.
Jack, that was crazy. I mean,
he didn't do
he did not bad. We'll edit it out. It'll be fine. You won't even see Jack. No, it's if Jack doesn't exist in this room. The way you're going to edit this thing. This thing will be 3 minutes long in the end. Pete's already edited this thing down to 0.
We're keeping it all. We're doing it live.
Yeah, I know. It's fun. It's good. You have rapid fire? In my podcast, I do rapid fire. It's really it makes it best part of the podcast.
What do you ask in the rapid fire?
Favorite 3 things you in your bucket list.
Where should I go in New York for dinner? Like, I just moved here a month ago. Can you give me some
Pasquale Jones.
For breakfast?
Odeon. For breakfast, Bubby's, Tribeca.
A good
Great
first
place.
date spot.
Manhattan. Rooftop down over here in Fidei. It's a rooftop restaurant.
Good park to go to that's not Central Park.
Oh, Washington Square Park. See some weirdos.
Yeah.
I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. That's why I go there.
Mets or Yankees?
Oh, please. 27 World Championships. Yankees by a lot. I like the Mets. I'm hoping for a Mets-Yankees World Series. I went to the Subway Series last time, and it was incredible. The city is so abuzz.
2000?
I think it was somewhere around there. I went to Game 6 at Shea Stadium.
Nice.
Which we lost, and I had to go back to Game 7, which we won, and you know how baseball works. We won the World Series. So I think it'll be, hopefully the Yankees and Mets will both be there, and just makes it another reason why New York is one of the greatest places on earth.
Boom. What's your favorite activity to do if you're not creating ads?
Great question. Running? Fashion? I like...
Why are you looking at the comms guy for that?
No, because he's showing me his disturbing socks. No, the socks are a bit much. I like clothes. I like fashion. I like style. I like design. I like all those things. Don't have kids, so I have some free time. I like sports a lot. Whether being a fan, I like playing. I'm not very good at basketball, but Dave Rolfe, one of my best friends, he taught me how to play basketball during the pandemic because we lived near each other.
I heard about that.
So he's very good.
Where do you play at?
We were playing in Shelter Island. I was living out there mostly during the pandemic, and still go out there and play once in a while. So I like that. I was a soccer player growing up. That was my sport.
Right. Our co-founder for Breaking Entering, his name is Jack. He won this Illinois State.
This Jack or this is the?
Yeah, that's Jack. I'm giving context.
Oh,
in case all that other stuff got cut out.
Co-founder, yep. Jack.
He was the Illinois State 3-point champion in high school. So if you need a guy.
Yeah, definitely need a ringer. I'd be on my team. Our friend Chad Hoppenwasser, who's the head of production of Tombras, who used to be at Crispin and a lot of different agency. He was he's number 9 in Philadelphia area basketball scoring history. Wow. Number 8 was Wilt Chamberlain or something like that, something crazy like that. But in high school, on his team, his sort of state, like club team that he would go around the state and play was Kobe Bryant. So Kobe would call his house like, "Hey, I need a ride." Like they knew each other. They played in the backcourt together. So incredible. So years later, when Crispin had Turkish Airlines, Crispin Porter Bogusky, we had to do this commercial with Lionel Messi and Kobe Bryant, and we were shooting them in different places, but in L.A. And I said, "Chad, you've got to come to the shoot. You're head of production of Crispin." He's like, "Nah, I don't want to go. He won't remember me." And I was like, "No, Chad, you're coming." So he comes to the shoot. He had to go anyway. He was the head of production. And he comes, and we see Kobe's manager, and I said, "Listen, I'm the CCO. This is Chad. He's the head of production." Oddly enough, Chad, I know he doesn't look like it now, but back then, Chad was an amazing basketball player and played club ball with Kobe. He played over 100 games with Kobe. They were really close. And the woman looked at him like, really, this guy? And I was like, trust me, he was svelte back then, and he's still a great player. He still looks good. But I go, is there any way Kobe can meet him? And she's like, okay. So we're waiting in the hallway like stalkers, and Kobe's coming down the hallway to the set for the first time. Yeah. And he's so giant. He was such a giant basketball player. He's a giant. And Chad, I say, hi, Kobe. I'm Rob. I'm the head of this creatively, and this is Chad. And Chad's like, hey, it's me, Chad. Kobe, it's me, Chad, from Coach Johnson's team. Yeah. And Kobe looked at him like he had 4 heads. I was like, oh no. The nightmare that he had predicted was happening, and I had pushed him into it. I felt so terrible. And then he goes, it's Hop. He goes, Hop? Oh my God. They start hugging.
Okay.
It was like the greatest moment of advertising production. It was so cool. They're taking photos together. The whole thing was amazing. And so, listen, basketball, long story short, basketball brings people together.
Yes, it does. Wow.
What the? Yeah. Jesus.
Wind it up.
You got to go? You got to listen. If he's got the material, then I'm ready to go. But if not,
this is
you
fantastic.
got it. Okay.
Any other final advice to the aspiring advertiser out there? If you leave them with one thing,
take the chance. Like come into stay in the business. Like you will not find a cooler, more interesting business out there. It may seem like it's hard. Certainly, if you're a young person, it's hard to be breaking into it. But once you're in, if you just work your ass off, people will take care of you. They do want you to succeed. It is that kind of, I think, nurturing, welcoming, inclusive business.
Is there a recruiter you recommend they say hello to?
There's our recruiters, WPP, Tyler. He and Shannon, their team, that's the WPP team, but there's amazing people at and sometimes you just got to introduce yourself, get yourself in there so they remember you, or there's internships or whatever. There's lots of different ways to get into agencies, but make the call. The worst thing people can say is, hey, we're not hiring right now, but thanks for,
Tyler and Shannon.
Yeah. Those are those are WPP people, but within each agency also are people. So, Tyler and Shannon.
Tyler and Shannon.
WPP.com has all live listings.
Oh yeah, over 7. Sometimes we have we have 7,000. I have the notes here. We have over
Tyler and Shannon.
Tyler and Shannon.
Will you stop saying Tyler and Shannon?
In 2023, Career Explorer advertised over 7,000 roles internally. We introduced Career Pathways, an AI-driven platform providing personalized career guidance.
Who writes this?
Anyway, now. We need people. We want people. Doesn't mean it's going to happen right away, but it took me a long time, and it's worked out for me too. Because be nice, work hard.
Love it.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, we've done the first podcast in this room. It's not even our podcast.